check one. There we go. There's the mic. There's the mic. Sometimes I do this to myself. I move around. We're all in this work from home environment. I move around. I move my laptop. I disconnect it, and then I don't connect it back together again to make it easy to reboot the live stream. Terrible at that. It's one of my worst features. Um, yeah. Okay. So we've got hey, we've got a lot of new followers. Wow. Welcome to the live stream. Hope you folks are doing well. If you are picking up on this, and we've had a recent surge in people subscribing to the YouTube channel, if you're watching the live stream and you're wanting to participate in the live chat, just know that we have a Discord channel. There's a Discord channel where if you want to follow along, if you want to ask questions, there's an open forum. The Discord channel, where do you find that at is what you're asking. It's at newpragmatic.com. There's a request access to community button, the big one right on the homepage. That'll get you right in. I just, I have my students that I work with, and I'm always looking for their commentary during these sessions, and I've seen some usage of the live stream chat over on YouTube, and YouTube is great, but I don't use it for the communication. We use Discord for that. So if you're watching along, welcome. Couchbot has fired, and we do have audio. I just want to check one more thing, because we come over here to YouTube, and next thing I know, we don't have audio or something. And we do have audio, so we're good to go there. Which means I think it's time we go live. So let's do that. Greetings one and all, Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic. It's time for the feedback loop. So good to have you along again for this edition. We've got, let's see here, Kara's in, Bren is in, Luigi in, and Fonzo is in. And some of these are, today it's really interesting. A lot of this is heavy-duty writing assignments. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get this underway, because some of this is just like, literally, let's dive in and parse the text. So let me do that right now. Okay, so I want to start here with Bren, and I've already kind of reviewed Bren's work because she submitted it yesterday afternoon, and we had a meeting. So I've taken a look at this work in part. There's a couple of things that I really like about what Bren has done here. She did competitive testing, which, for those of you who aren't familiar with the program, competitive testing is basically where you want to see how competitor sites work, and essentially it's the same thing you'll do with your product. You'll do product testing on your prototypes, but this allows you to begin testing things before you've even moved a cursor and started to design anything. So this is part of the research that we do here at New Pragmatic, and she had 3 participants, wide range. Men, women, 30 to 60, tech savvy, not tech savvy, just love the range. Some people who use these services, some people who do not, and we're talking about meal subscription services. She's got the key takeaways here at the top, which I think is fantastic. It goes back to what we've talked about with presentations. When you're presenting your findings, when you're presenting your ideas, when you're pitching somebody, you lead with the meat. You don't draw it out. And if after the first minute they can't tell you what's going on, you've done a poor job of that. So right away, participants were adverse to certain parts of the checkout process. Pricing was the first priority for everybody, and they found the pricing confusing on these industry-leading sites. Participants had to backtrack, so they were having to move around to get to the menu. The menu didn't have filtering options, which made it hard to search. And participants were annoyed by pop-ups. Okay, and these are all things that if you're doing the, I'm just going to copy the leading competitor. you would be copying a lot of the bad habits of a leading competitor, because she's looked at Fresh Market and and Blue Apron here. Not Fresh Market, sorry. Hello Fresh and Blue Apron here, and Hello Fresh and Blue Apron are two of the biggest meal kit companies out there. Um, but I wouldn't say that, like, and this is something we'll talk about in a minute. While these are large companies, and while there are a lot of companies, the number of people who subscribe to these services is still fairly low. We're talking about single digits of the overall population. So with that said, and I got a notice here from Discord. Oh, yes, okay. With that said, the the ability for people to come through and use these services, you really want to make sure that you're not just picking up the bad habits, and that's why product testing is so important. So, or competitor testing. So another thing that she did here that I thought was great was she was going through and screenshotting this as she went. So professional looking social proof, how it works section was easy to understand. Menu was polished. There was some variety. Pinpoint cooking times and meal categories. And then she gets down here to the areas that could be improved. And like, you would think that I could click on 20-minute meals or craft burger or taste tours, and you can't. The FAQ was in a weird spot. The pricing, she paid close attention to the pricing because the language in the pricing was confusing. These are all participants didn't understand why selecting meals was at the end of the sign-up process. So, you know, why am I ending this with that activity? Search feature was hard to use. Filters were limited. So the Blue Apron, the hero video was well done. The pricing seems affordable, which is a pleasant surprise. The recipe cards behave as expected. Clear categories. Instructions were easy to follow. Areas that could be improved. Asking for the personal information right up front. Unable to see meal selections before going through the whole checkout process, which is a big pain in the butt. You're asking people to basically say, yes, I want your service. I have no idea what you have to sell, but it's almost like going into a new store and signing up for like a cart full of whatever they have. You don't know what they have yet, but here, just give me a cart of it. It makes no sense. And as I was saying to Bryn yesterday, you see new businesses do this all the time, and over time, the ones that survive shift away from this. So names of the plans are a bit unclear. What does signature entail? You know, and when you think about that, you'll hear a lot of CEOs or stakeholders. They'll say, "This is our signature plan," or "This is our legacy edition," or it's kind of like the naming of cars. Like there's the touring and the sport, and you would think that sport was like a pretty great thing. It's always like the sport is always like the bottom tier because it's meant to be lean and rugged and sporty, and like is that what I want? Touring is plush, but do people really know what those words mean? No, they don't know what those words mean at all. All right, pricing same per signature plan. So, oops, I accidentally hit a keystroke there. But overall, I think that Bren did a great job of pulling this together. Another thing that I want to point out as you're looking at this is that the files that Bren's collected. She's got the results. She's got her playback files. She's got audio recordings. She's got the video calls themselves. They're all organized in one spot, one folder, inside of her Google Drive. This is very helpful because these projects can go on for a while. Ask Kara. And at some point, you will need to circle back to things that you did in an earlier stage of the project. Sometimes you'll go back to earlier builds of the project. So some research that somebody did a year ago, 2 years ago, you may be comparing with research or the current status of the program, or the current status of the project rather. And if you can't find these files because they're, oh, I didn't bother to organize those as I was going, I don't know where they went. It means that they decay, and eventually they will be completely lost. So that work that you put in is essentially gone. Okay? So organizing your files, much in the way of what Bren has done, is the way to go. Bren, I think you did an outstanding job here on the competitive testing. I think you got out of it what you needed, which is knowledge of where the pain points were for real users, and now you can move into the analysis, and I know that's where you're headed next. Okay, so we're going to close that down. Let's hop over here to Fresh Market, the case study, because Kara is on the other side of this planet. And Kara, you've got your overview, your challenge solution. So much of the case study, and what I'm going to be looking for here are the parts of it addressed, and then I'm going to go back and read through the whole thing. So what your role was, really you're the UX UI designer on this. You were performing all the tasks. You did work with real people on this. I would remove student because it's not really accurate for the work that you did. If you did this in a classroom where it was just like, and I would like to test this with users now, then you're a student. But the fact that you're out there in the field talking to real people, pushing your prototype, pushing your people against your prototype and seeing where the breakpoints are, that's not student work. Okay, now you are into UX UI designer. I do like that you've organized your information, like this said, hey, here are the methods I used, and this is typically the area that if we're looking at this from like a case study, I always envision the case study being, give me a little bit of information about it, tell me what you did, shove the process off to another page if I want to go deeper into that, and then get me to the area where you cover what you learned. And you've clearly got your process here. So each of these, like observational research, stakeholder, competitive research, survey, competitive testing, observations. So right now, Bren is like at this stage, and Kara's got all of this. So Bren, the world ahead of you. Analysis, interviews, affinity mapping. People like to save times. People like customization. People like quality products. User personas, user stories, flows, story mapping, priority guide, microcopy included, sketches, wireframes, prototyping round 1, testing round 1, branding, components round 2, testing round 2. So what did you learn? All right, so meal kit subscriptions are polarizing. That is interesting if I am considering you for like an e-commerce job, but less so if I'm considering you just for a UX UI job that has nothing to do with meal kits or sales. So that I might move down. I would keep it, but I might move it down because the more important observation here is people have high expectations, especially if they have to commit to something. So like the jump here is, the expectations go up as my commitment level goes up. And that means that you have to tune that product to lead to mass adoption. Time is of the utmost value. Everything sees things differently. And designing interfaces and experiences is not as easy as it seems. I think that these are very logical things I think these are very logical, not assumptions, but observations to reach. based on the project that you performed. Um, I do think that this is more of a student observation. This is talking about experience right here. Like there's a lot of experience coming through in those two observations. This one down here sounds more like a student is talking. Um, but I think these three observations overall are the most important ones when it comes to selling to a potential client or future employer that you understand what this is all about. They're, the user has high expectations, they value their time, they see things differently, so you can't rely on your perspective. Like those three are gold. The other two, they're good, but I would play them down, and like one of these is literally at the end already. I would move meal kits below that one because I do think like there is something to say about, hey, you know what? Interface design is hard. It's not just drawing some boxes. So this is pretty good. I'm going to dive in deeper because I want to spend more time with it. But I will definitely I'll definitely give you some inline feedback here. Luigi is here with Daily Pay, and just for the record, Luigi has been working for this company called Daily Pay, and he's you know, everybody needs to add to their portfolios as you go. You should not be waiting until the end to beef up your portfolio. But if you come through and you're adding things to your portfolio, you can't just rely on, hey, here's the finished product. Okay? You need to walk me through. There's a couple things I'm always looking for. Like, what did you learn through this process, and can you show me your progression? Like, can you show me how you got to this point? So Luigi's taking the first crack at it today, and he's got an intro, and I'm pretty sure that intro is create long and short form versions. Yeah, so that's basically the intro. Now, what he's learned. So this is one of those situations where you're kind of walking through. You're doing this in a story format at the moment. I would like some things that I can grab onto. Are there any ways that I can put headings on these so that I can kind of scan them and see, oh, which one am I interested in? So engage the marketing team to see how to oversee the company's lead gen, that provided insights to allow you to streamline the page and reduce the number of form fields. He also learned about some of the challenges they face with partner employees incorrectly using the demo page. So I would say, you know, a heading that you might put on here is leverage existing teams, leverage knowledge already in house. And this would be like, I talked to our marketing team, and they helped me see what the real issues were, and they also showed me like, hey, I could get rid of these form fields, and hey, some employees are misusing this. So, you know, you wouldn't have gotten that. You would have had to do a lot of, feeling around in the dark to get to those observations had you not just worked with the team. So when speaking with the lead generation team, I asked if all existing form fields were essential. I did. I learned that how did you hear about us? Drop-down field was not useful. It was a required field, but the prospect chose random answers that were almost always inaccurate in an effort to complete the form. As a result, our lead generation team would ask them how they were referred during a follow-up call after the demo page submission. This enabled me to remove the field from the form. So those are helpful things. Like, again, I think that goes back to the first piece where you're talking about, I was able to lean on, I'd lean on internal knowledge, that's already here. So it looks like there's more of that. I'm going to go through and do some digging on this because I wanna find out if there 2 or 3 chunks like that we can like label, so that it sets you up, because right now again it's a big piece of copy, and I don't really want somebody who's coming through and scanning to have to feel like the read story from top to bottom. I want them to be able to find some hooks to hop around in here and find what they're looking for. All right, finally we got Fonzo, and Fonzo is actually over here in the type specimen. And what's interesting here is when we think about the information that you have, you've gone through and added images like this content that Fonzo was provided with is right here, and I'm interested in seeing, first of all, how we're doing on pairings. So you've got Lucinda Grand, and then you've got Enria Sands, and then you've got Lucinda Grand. So this is the classic issue of there's not enough contrast here. This is a situation where I've got a Sands and a Sands, and they basically are the same. Like, I look at the structure here, like I've got the same A. I have a slightly different G, which that's going to make it feel stranger, to be honest with you. This is at 14, that's at 14, that's at 12, that's at 12. This is Lucinda Grant at 14. There's a few issues here, and the first one is I'm going to go right away is this should either, sorry, and now there's another. That's really weird. I don't know where that came from. I'm going to drag that over here. It seems like there's another shape here that went away. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, listen, the image. If we're gonna work on with this sort of space, you want to pay close attention to how the spacing's working on these examples over to the side. It's almost ironic how they progressively get more and more padding pretty much as you go down. There's virtually no padding here on this design. So the first thing that I would want to see, and I could do this with auto layout, but we don't have these aren't set up in auto layout yet. So I'm just going to measure in first of all. And then the other problem here is, like, where you put that photo currently, I don't really have space for it. If I'm using a photo and I have these, a couple things that do always get longer are the name of the restaurant and then this information here. It can be really anything. And that's Lucinda Grand too. I'm going to make a call here, and I'm just going to say the Arena. Well, I need to find out what the name of that is again. Enria Sands. So Enria Sands. Okay, immediately better. Now, I would make this 16. Give it a clear lead. This information. This is 14. This is 12. I would either make it all 14 or all 12. I want uniformity here because, I'll make it 12. Why am I making it 12? That's the question you're probably going to be asking yourself. And why is Chris doing this weird thing with the spacing? Well, it's because I want to show you how to add spacing between these elements using the paragraph spacing. So if I come through here and I say 8, and right now it knocked the phone number down. That's because I have a hard return. Now I have a hard return between all of these. If I want this to be tighter, I make it I hit shift return, and that will tighten this up. But now I have spacing between these elements, and that will allow me to come back. And this is again Lucinda Grand. I'm only picking Arena Sands because Um, in Ria Sands, sorry, in Ria Sands. I'm only picking that because you picked it before me. So that's 14. So now I have 3 bits of information that are all trying to work together. I have the name of the restaurant, the basically the type of restaurant that it is, the location, the phone number, and then the quote about the restaurant. Um, when this was, I want to look at it side by side with the other version of itself. When we look at the side by side, one of the biggest problems right away is just the fact that it's running right into the edge of the box. Okay, we would never allow that to happen in CSS, so this would be naturally have padding on it. There's a lot of the typography is very distracting because it's jumping between familiar typefaces all the way through, and getting these into a situation where they are uniform is ideal. Here, what I've done is I've just used bold as the flex point, but I could have said arena. Well, there's sans, and I think there was a serif too. I could have said serif if I wanted to, and I might even make that one a little larger. But here I'm using the serif as the contrasting element. Okay. I would use either weight. So here I could come through and I could say, hey, yeah, make that bold, or make that light doesn't work at all, but I make that bold. Or I could come back and say, all right, well, I'm not going to do serif, I'm going to do sans, make that bold. That's fine. The contrast here should be weight and size, or moving to a different type style, like I'm moving from serif to sans. Not, I'm going to take 2 sans or 2 serifs or 2 anything when they have such a when the structure of them is so close. If you had a very wide serif and a very narrow sans together, or a very wide sans and a very narrow sans, it would probably work depending on what was your like true display typography. But here it's not working because these are just too close together. Now this dish that you've brought in, this is typically something that I would say, okay, well, I'm going to put it up here. Why am I going to put it up here? Well, because I don't know how long the title of these items are going to be, and if I'm going to have this be responsive, the responsible thing to do is not to back myself into a corner where this has to come in, and now it's this deep, and this information is underneath, which I guess is fine. You're going to end up with the space here, but it's certainly better than running into the edge. So, for my money, I would probably go below and maybe look at, either that dish is fine right there, or you could pull in a wider image if you wanted to. But that's how I would approach this. So I would encourage, and again, I'm pretty much mirroring what you're seeing down here in these other versions, particularly with the spacing, okay? So I would like to see you take another stab at this, keeping in mind that when you get over to things like Mungel's Idol Shop, and you put this in a slightly larger typeface. So let's look at this in 18. That's going to go right off the side, but if it was underneath, not such a big deal. Okay, so let's take another stab at that, and I would say apply that same knowledge that we just dropped over here, because guess what? You've got like multiple typefaces that, is there a reason this has to be a serif and this has to be a sans? Are they doing uniquely different? Is there a reason why this is Lucinda Grand? Is there a reason why this is Montserrat? Like, you've got 4 different typefaces on 4 different lines. Find 2. Use bold. Use a sans serif and a sans. Package all, if you were going to make a break anywhere, the break should be here. Package all this information together. Otherwise, like this just is trying to go too many different directions, and it's not really carrying enough weight. All right. So let's take another stab at that. And with that, we're going to wrap up. I've got a meeting to run off to. So you folks have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all again right here tomorrow. Take care.